There's a little-known part of Hollywood that most people are not aware of, known as the audience test preview. The recently released book, Audienceology, reveals this for the first time. Our podcast series, Don't Kill the Messenger, brings this book to life, taking a peek behind the curtain. And now, join author and entertainment research expert, Kevin Goetz.
Good morning, angels.
Good morning, Charlie.
Your mission today is to learn about my guest, who is no stranger to thrills and high-octane adventures. Together, we are going to meet and uncover the secrets of the talented director and producer, and should I add funny and very ginger, Joseph McGinty Nichol, better known as McG. His film directorial credits include Charlie's Angels, We Are Marshall, The Babysitter, and Family Switch. And his television credits include Lethal Weapon and Turner and Hooch. Are you ready to rock and roll, angels?
McG, I'm so glad you're here, man.
I'm so glad to be here. We gingers got to stick together.
Wait, what is it? We do everything alike. We talk alike. So, McG, I met you first at that first screening of Charlie's Angels. I don't know how many years ago. You were one of the nicest guys. You were like a deer caught in the headlights because it was your first Hollywood experience at a screening. Tell me about that.
That was a wild one. I mean, yeah, we sort of went from 0 to 100 on that one real quick. For the first film to be a film of that magnitude was exciting.
What was the budget on that?
115 million bucks.
And your first movie, first full length, right?
Yeah, and nobody wanted me to do that. That was at the time when the studio was being run by Amy Pascal, Lucy Fisher, and of course the great John Calley. And I was only protected by Drew, Nancy. And Drew was a very, very powerful movie star at the time. And I remember I had previously pitched Amy Pascal in a film called Blue Streak, if you remember this film, with Martin Lawrence and I believe Luke Wilson. And it went terribly. I went and I pitched Amy, and I was completely ill-prepared, and Amy didn't like it. And she calls my agent at the time, who was Phil Raskin, and goes, "That was a terrible pitch." And I had one of those moments where I said, never, it was like
Scarlett O'Hara.
Grasping the dirt.
I will never be hungry again.
I will never be hungry again. And then I got the opportunity. I actually met Drew Barrymore through rock and roll, not through film. She was running around with the guy at the time. Her boyfriend was a guy, Eric Erlandson, who was the guitar player in Courtney Love's band Hole. And I was very much involved in the rock and roll scene. And Drew
doing
said,
music videos.
Correct. And making records.
Right. You had G Recordings, your own label.
Yeah.
Damn.
I'll tell you that story shortly.
All right.
But Drew had the rights to Charlie's Angels, and she was like, "I want to make a female superhero movie, and I want it to be like your videos. They're colorful and exciting and explosive." And every legitimate director had passed in town. And I said, "Okay." And
no one wanted to touch that property, probably because there was a cheese factor to it, right?
Indeed. Then Amy Pascal rolls her eyes like this yo-yo. I have already met with him once. He's terribly unimpressive. And I was so ready. And I went in there with Drew.
You were so ready this time.
Oh, yeah. I acted out the whole movie in real time. I did all 3 parts. I stood up on the table and did it. Amy and Lucy were looking at me like I was out of my fucking mind. Arms crossed, terrible nonverbals, shaking their head like this guy's dead to us. Drew's there cheering me on. And then begrudgingly at the end, it was a real moment of Drew's like, he's doing it or I'm not. And begrudgingly, they hired me, and then the rest is Hollywood history, as they say, and it worked out.
Wow.
And I was nearly fired off that movie 6, 8 times.
You mean they would see dailies, and they said, "We got to replace him"?
Amy would call me and go, "What is this? It's so colorful. Everybody's singing and dancing, and why are the girls flying around with the guys from The Matrix? And what am I
certainly
watching?"
wasn't Amy's view the night of the screening, because she was pretty ecstatic, if I recall.
Well, by the time we got around to you, we had been through the fire.
By the way, it was Flower Films, one of their first big movies.
Indeed.
So they also had a lot on the line.
Everybody had a lot on the line. And they brought in Jenno Topping to help produce it with Betty, because Betty and Jenno were partners.
Right. Betty and Jenno were partners in Betty Thomas's
Tall Trees.
Yeah, Tall Trees. I forget who I'm talking to here. I think of him as talent, but he's not only talent, he's also a businessman, which is why I'm really turned on to you.
You're hysterical.
No, it's true, though. You're so cool. I just want to say, we see each other all the time, but we just reconnected most recently at the Motion Picture and Television Fund event at Sherry Lansing's house at Scott Stubert, also co-hosted, and you and I both really felt passionate about this cause, and we said, like, what can we do? We got to do something. Let's join forces and get some others on board.
We have to make some moves there to take care of our own, and I think there are ways to do that. And again, bureaucracy is in the way of that one, that you and I got to blow through that.
Absolutely. You know? Absolutely. We'll talk about that on another show, because we should do a show just based on that. When you know about the Motion Picture and Television Country House and you go there, you are like, oh my Lord, this is in our industry. We are responsible for this. We take care of our own. It's a fabulous place. Okay, so going back to Charlie's Angels, that first screening, Amy Pascal comes out. Scores are pretty damn good, if I recall, and suddenly everyone's a believer. There's nothing like success, McG.
I suppose you're right, but we still had to hold our breath until we opened. And then when it opened, we then got to pop some champagne because it was the largest first-time opening in Hollywood history. And Jeff Blake, if you recall, our dear buddy,
yes, I know Jeff.
He was the one that put that stat out there, and I was humbled and honored to hold that for a while.
How did you get the name Wonderland Sound and Vision?
Well, I believe in storytelling. You and I should be able to close our eyes and listen to a film and understand exactly what's going on. That's my Peter and the Wolf influence. We're like, oh, there's the oboe. That's the funny duck waddling across. And it creates imagery. And conversely, I think that you should be able to plug your ears and just watch the picture and know exactly what's going on. So therefore, the sound and vision. And it's one of my favorite David Bowie songs. And I'm trying to go back to my Thin White Duke phase. That I was in my Orson Welles phase for a long time, and I said, enough of that. You know, I got to go back to my Bowie phase, but I'm trying my ass off.
Why music? What resonated with you? So was it since your days when you grew up in Michigan?
Well, I mean, I'm born in Kalamazoo, Michigan, but I grew up largely in Newport Beach, California. And at the time I was going to school, I was pre-med, because I come from a very academic family where Hollywood's a million miles away. And I finally realized
And you were a psychology major, right?
Correct. Well, that was to try to cure my own neurosis and my own ills.
You went to UC Irvine?
Correct, which was a function of my being so agoraphobic, you know, at the time, and we'll talk about that, which got me fired off Superman.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, too many things,
okay,
man.
We'll revisit.
We're back in Newport Beach.
We're in Newport Beach.
Not known for their music scene, by the way.
No, known for the general malaise of divorce cultures and planned
and high-end society.
Well, not so much.
In California, pretty high-end.
It got there, but not in the 70s, not in the 80s. You know what I mean?
And very
it was still
white.
a groovy, very kind of Reagan-esque at the time. And it was hard being an oddball. You know what I mean? Older brother, older sister, my whole life is music and film from the day I'm born. People talk about when did you turn on to film or when did you turn on to music? I don't even know how to answer.
It was in your blood.
It's in my blood. And I would always act out songs and just get so taken away by this Busby Berkeley fantasy life that I had my whole life. And I finally reconciled around my junior year in school that I'm not going to med school. I'm tired of being broke. I love music. I love film. And I'm buddies with Gwen Stefani in Anaheim. 3 guys in Long Beach that call themselves Sublime. The one black dude in Irvine, Zach De La Rocha, who was the singer of Rage Against the Machine. And my best friend growing up is this guy, Mark McGrath, who's the Sugar Ray guy, who I'm like, dude, you're not the greatest singer in the world, but you're terribly handsome. Let's make a video. And I wanted to be Rick Rubin, because Rick Rubin started Def Jam out of his NYU dorm room. And here's a guy going to NYU that was plugged into the hip hop culture and he wanted to bring it to the world.
How'd you make the video?
So I helped those guys write their hits, Fly, Every Morning, and Someday.
You helped compose those?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. And then because I was a still photographer, we needed a video. And it was the time of MTV. So my buddy was a camera assistant and we had to bite, scratch, and kick and scream to borrow Panavision gear in those days.
Totally scrappy.
Go to the Kodak docks and beg for short ends.
Exactly. There were no digital cameras, no digital anything. It was all film, and film was expensive.
Terribly.
So if you were a scrappy young filmmaker, you would beg for short ends, the leftover film from a reel that was never used, correct?
Right, exactly right. And therefore you'd have these little abbreviated takes, and then you'd have to reload. All right, let's reload. And it was very difficult, but awesome. It was a dream come true. So I make this video. I put it on green cassette tapes and I hide it in pizza boxes. And I have the pizzas delivered to the heads of the record labels in the United States.
Oh, hold on. We're talking genius here, guys.
No, they would never take me. But they took the pizza. And it got into the hands of Ahmet Ertegun in New York, who's obviously a legend. He got 30 seconds into watching it and said, sign those guys.
Wow.
And we got a big giant record deal.
I wonder if he ever ate the pizza.
And that was one of the first humiliations of my life, because right when I was around 15 or 16 years old, I started having really meaningful anxiety attacks, a real problem with that.
Mid-teens?
Yeah, I mean, it happens a lot and I was very late with puberty, and it's a very overwhelming thing when your heart starts racing and you can't breathe and you don't know why. And a lot of people have that and just kind of cycle in and out of it and never become agoraphobic. But a lot of people start to associate, hey, I had that problem on the plane. I'm not going to get on the plane anymore. I had it on the freeway. I'm not going to get on the freeway anymore. I had it at the mall. I'm going to stop going to the mall. And your world can get real small. And my world started getting real small. And here we are where New York, Atlantic Records calls and says, fly out here, first class. We're going to do the works and the thing. And I remember the 5 of us sleeping at my apartment in Newport Beach and my knowing I had this problem. And the first class tickets are on the counter and I couldn't sleep. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I climbed out of the window of my own apartment, left the keys to my Volkswagen Rabbit on the counter and said, you guys go. I'm kind of sick. And the guys in Sugar Ray knew, and they didn't really rub it in, but they got to go and have this incredible victory lap in New York and, get this big giant record deal. And I couldn't participate in that. And I kept that secret all the way through Charlie's.
How many years is that?
15.
Jeez Louise.
So it kind of came on at
Did
15.
your parents know?
They knew, but it's one of those things that, you can explain it, but people don't really get it because I kind of have, this boisterous personality. And I remember when I was doing Superman, I overtly tried to speak responsibly to Alan Horn and Barry Meyer and say, I'm really worried about going down to Australia. I don't think I can fly down there. I got this problem with flying. And they were kind of like, oh, you're McG. Come on, you'll be fine. And I'm like, I'm trying to tell you I can't do it. And you
could have taken a boat, I guess.
No, I was equally afraid of that. It's not the flying.
Got it.
It's the lack of control.
Yes.
and the anywhere that would be a bad place to have a full-blown anxiety episode is what you would avoid. Because it's that avoidance behavior that just, again, makes your world really small. And, the Warner jets idling on the runway, I didn't have the nerve to tell Mike. I just was hoping that somehow I'd find the nerve.
You literally took it up to that point.
Yeah, and I couldn't get on the plane.
Oh,
that night, got fired. Tough call. Ari Emanuel comes over to my house to share the news, but stand by my side to Ari's credit. It was a real stand-up moment that I'll always owe him for. Get a letter the next day from the head of legal at Warner's. These people are all my dear friends saying we reserve the right to sue you for the damages you've caused to the film by not telling us about your problem. And that ultimately got me to limp in to see these 2 women at UCLA, one a psychiatrist, one a behavioral therapist, that helped me start to put one foot in front of the other and start to try to overcome this disorder. So I rented a G4 from a rich guy in Santa Barbara, and I would just start sleeping on the plane just to get used to the fuselage of the plane. And then we'd start taxiing, and I was doing the work with the 2 professionals at UCLA. And then one day I gave the pilot the look and he put the throttle down and we took off.
I'm going to cry. I'm going to only say this because I have OCD and really clinical OCD. Mm-hmm. And I've been on meds for years because of that. And I've had to have behavioral therapy years ago and so forth. This is since I'm a little boy. It's just a brain chemistry disorder.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
And the fact is that you could be so open about it and share that, and it makes me want to share that too. I think makes us very human, but also it talks about how real these things are. They really are like totally present. And your desire and your drive couldn't even overcome that mental
challenge. I couldn't bear the thought of being the guy that couldn't do it. And, I put myself in very unsavory positions, as you can imagine. And it was terribly embarrassing. And it's on the cover of the New York Times, director of Superman, afraid to fly. And it was terribly humiliating, but it sort of was the change agent I needed to do the work I needed to do to get a leg up on it. People
Where are you now with it?
I'm very good now with it. I've been very good for a long time, but people go, oh, you're over that. I would never say I'm over it. And I would imagine you feel the same way with your OCD challenges, where you go, I'm managing it very well right now, and I keep working hard. No different than, if you have an obesity challenge and you try to manage your weight.
Diabetes.
It's like I'm doing well, but I don't use the terms of art, hey, I licked it, I'm over it. No. I just say I'm doing, and I mean, I've been around the world 100 times, but that shaped me to such a degree that I'm very respectful of that path I've walked, and it's my truth. So I did hide it for a long time, but the
more you talk about it, in my opinion, the more it takes the power out of it and the juice out of it, and suddenly it becomes, oh, it's just a thing.
But I think, look at you. Great. You have this condition that you don't love. It's caused you some difficulties, but it's also probably what gives you your secret sauce.
I can't even believe you said that. When I began to recognize it and got on medication, I'm talking 25 years ago, it made me more focused. It made me more creative because I wasn't distracted with all these other thoughts and things that came into my head. I became more single-focused, and I became much more effective as a result of it.
Yeah, I mean, there you have it. I don't think anybody would wish what Stephen Hawking went through, but he'll be the first to say that focused his mind. So though it's a painful reality,
That's
what you do
interesting. I
with
never heard that.
Yeah, he would talk about that very, very openly, that if he could do a somersault in the grass, he wouldn't have developed his mind to such a degree. And it's still a sad, heavy burden to bear, but there can be secondary gains.
Sure.
And I think that, because as you stated, I believe completely, it's a brain chemistry thing. So A, don't beat yourself up over it. And B, maybe that's part of why you got dragon's blood in your veins and you kick so much ass too, or why I hear music a certain way or see a film a certain way. And you take the crunchy with the smooth and you do your best to sort of reconcile that. And, that's given me a little peace, even though it's terribly difficult. And I have children of my own now. And
How many do you have?
3. So
And their ages?
7, 5, and 2. I was very late to that. I'm surprised my dusty old balls still work. But anyway, remember in Forrest Gump when he realizes he has the kid and he asks Jenny, is he, and it's the first time Forrest cops to knowing, hey, I'm Forrest Gump. I get it. And he never did through the body of the film. I'm very sensitive because I wouldn't want any of my children to go through what I've gone through because it was extremely painful and humiliating and embarrassing and very rough.
I bet your parents felt like, gosh, I wish you told us more and we could have been there for you more.
Yeah, but they also come from that generation of stiff upper lip.
Oh.
Don't be a wimp. And they love me. It sounds like I'm painting a sadistic picture. Not at all. But it was just a lack of understanding. It was just sort of
my parents didn't know what to do when I was touching things repeatedly.
Right.
They didn't know what to do with that. They just thought it was, he'll get out. He'll grow out of that.
Yeah. And, I was functional enough. Even though I was meant to go to USC and I couldn't handle even driving 45 minutes up the freeway, I ended up going to UCI. And, it really, really closed down my life. And yeah, it's just something, it's a part of me. And
good on you, man. Good on you.
I'm trying.
So let's go back to your first big success, Charlie's Angels. You're a guy who was scrappy and did all these things and music and still photography and music videos. And now you get a major motion picture. It's in the over $100 million budget. There's a lot at stake. It's a success, thank God. How does your life change from that point?
A lot of doors opened, a lot of opportunity. That was how I got on to Superman. I was on Superman twice. The first time was right after Charlie's because I was buddies with Robinoff, my dear friend Jeff Robinoff, and went out and talked about it. But then I didn't do it because we got the second Charlie's together. So I went and did the sequel to Charlie's.
Full Throttle.
Correct. And then after that, got back into Superman. So a lot of opportunities, and also seems strange because everybody does it now, but at the time, feature filmmakers weren't really that involved in television. And my agent is Ari Emanuel, along with Phil Raskin and Ari Greenberg and Patrick Weitzel. And Ari goes, you got to do a TV show. And I go, all right, I'm, a scrawny little dude from Newport Beach, California. And I went to school with those strapping water polo Adonises. And that was the OC. So we did that, and Josh Schwartz flushed it out and came up with everything on that one. And, he's one of the great writers of our time.
Are you a creator on that?
I don't know if I got creator, but I'm EP. I mean,
that's what I mean. You were on every episode.
Yeah.
Got it. But you directed some, didn't you?
No, I didn't direct any of it.
Oh, really?
And that was a bad scene. Part of the sales package, because Josh, bless his heart, was so young. He was the youngest showrunner in the history of television. And they're like, who's this kid? We need, at the time, McG to play the role of I was now the new Drew Barrymore. I was the 800-pound gorilla to help Josh do his thing. So we went in there. It was Gail Berman, who was running
another one of my
Fox at the time.
heroes.
And when we said I couldn't do it because I was doing a movie, she hit the roof and said, I'm going to kill the show unless you can get a director of your caliber to do the pilot. And we were lucky enough to get Doug Liman to do it. So Doug Liman did the pilot.
Man, is he talented.
Oh, he's amazing. And that was that. Another one for the Hollywood folklore pile.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Man, oh man.
So opportunity is the answer to the question.
Opportunity, exactly.
And I started my production company, which was Wonderland, because I like just the idea of, again, my childhood was boring and I always had a very active dream life. So Wonderland. And like I said, Sound and Vision because of the Bowie song, and Equal Measure records and movies. So that was that. And I was lucky enough to partner with Stephanie Savage, who worked for Nancy and Drew. And I saw that here's this, incredible PhD candidate out of the University of Iowa writing program. And,
how'd you get her away from Flower?
Well, they were gracious.
Oh, they were cool?
Saw that we were they prescribed her to me because they knew I was a fuck up. And Drew and Nancy had the wisdom, and particularly Nancy has incredible business acumen. She's like, I'm prescribing, because Stephanie was so buttoned up and awesome. She's like, you control Crazy McG. And Stephanie and I got on like a house on fire, and then we started the company. And then she became very close with Josh through the OC. And then they started their own company, rightfully so, because she's a writer. She's got a writer's spirit. And now they're juggernauts in their own right.
You know, it's so cool is that, so Drew went on a limb for you, and then she also went on a limb for seeing talent like beyond. Like Nancy was someone she had met, like I think at a party or something, and was very taken with her and called her, and Nancy was not in the business. And she said, Nancy, I really enjoyed meeting you. I'd like to start a production company, and I think you'd be right to run it. Like, who thinks like that?
But that's to
incredible.
Both their credit, but certainly to Drew for identifying the magic. And then that Nancy Javonen, I've met a lot of people. That is one magical human being right there. If she sets her sights on something, her ability to put what is necessary together to get that done is unparalleled. She's incredible.
Wow. Well, when we come back, I want to talk about a lot of things, but there's so many recent projects you've been involved with that have evolved beyond just movies into the streaming world. We'll be back in a moment.
Get a glimpse into a secret part of Hollywood that few are aware of and that filmmakers rarely talk about. In the new book, Audienceology by Kevin Goetz. Each chapter is filled with never-before-revealed inside stories and interviews from famous studio chiefs, directors, producers, and movie stars, bringing the art and science of audienceology into focus. Audienceology, how moviegoers shape the films we love. From Tiller Press at Simon & Schuster. Available now.
We're back here with McG. I'm thinking about the film directors like Spike Jonze, David Fincher, F. Gary Gray, Gus Van Sant, Antoine Fuqua, Michael Bay, all starting in music videos. What is it about music videos that seem to, I don't know, bring out the best in filmmakers, or at least produce a lot of great filmmakers? Is it just the visual style?
It's so insightful that you bring that up, because what a class that was in the 90s. And the way it would work was a record label would send out a song, the new Closer by 9 Inch Nails, and Fincher would write on it. Spike would write on it. I would write on it. F. Gary Gray would write on it. Hype Williams, Ratner, all these people that were part of this group, Francis Lawrence. And you can imagine how different the takes would be, and how the final expression of what that is for the artist was, it was all over the place. What you get from Michael Bay versus what you get from Spike Jonze, Michel Gondry. I mean, those are really different expressions. And what a fascinating time. And the point is, you would get the song on a Tuesday, to have to write the idea Tuesday night, to be awarded the gig on Wednesday, to shoot that weekend, and to edit, to have it on MTV 17 days later, which is, if you think about making a record, if you think about making a movie, you think about writing a script, the speed of that was so extraordinary that it forced you to develop your style. And you therefore, oh yeah, I've shot on the mountaintop, shot at night, shot at day, shot in the desert, shot in the rain, shot in the submarine, shot flying out of not me, but, jumping out of a helicopter, stuff like that. You really push a lot of film through the camera and develop a voice. It was a wonderful way to develop a voice. And you look at how different all those filmmakers are. And if to this day, if you gave Spike a script, Mark Romanek a script, Michel Gondry a script, and me a script, same script, think how different that film is by the time it gets to Kevin Goetz. You know what I mean? And you have to put it up on the screen and see what the audience thinks of it.
Speaking of which, we have been through warfare a number of times.
We have indeed.
In the
I owe you huge. You are my secret sauce.
Oh, wow.
What? You should have a piece of the action. You got to cut better deals. You should call Ari when we're done with this. You
Why
hold the
am I
keys
your
to the
secret
because you
sauce?
hold the keys to the. Well, if you know how to listen, you got to know how to swallow a little ego when you're in my boots, and you go to that. Here we go. We're putting it up on the screen. I always thought that was funny. Crickets and tumbleweeds. I always thought that was horrible. Audience loves it. You get a lot right, and you know when you got a great one, you know when you got one that's a little troubled. But the degree to which the system you've put together can illuminate, do this, don't do that, get to here more quickly, don't get to there at all. Their dynamic isn't working for the following reasons. This is preventing the audience from falling in love with her. And if you know how to incorporate that invaluable feedback, you can improve your film to such a degree that it's to everyone's benefit, most of which the audience.
Sorry to say this, but the greatest filmmakers have said that to me, not only about me, but about the process.
Yeah.
The best filmmakers. And the ones that are not as embracive of the process, I think don't have as much respect for the audience. And that is a problem.
I would agree. And again, it might be the rock and roll days where I liked performing the music. I liked the enthusiasm, applause of the audience. And I always felt the same way in filmmaking. It's more fun when people enjoy it. You don't want to sell your soul and do something that's foreign to who you are as a voice and as an artist. But I think God just might give with two hands in that particular instance where you're like, this is indeed for the audience, but I'm going to do it my way. And I think with Charlie's Angels, that was me saying, I like Busby Berkeley. I like Quentin Tarantino. I like the old Hong Kong cinema. And I put it in this blender, and I like 3-strip Technicolor. And I did it. So that was very authentic and dangerous for me at the time. But at the same time, I really felt that was going to resonate with the audience. I didn't do it just for me.
How did you take a property like Charlie's Angels that was a known TV property, kind of beloved, kind of iconic, especially with Farrah Fawcett and Jacqueline Smith and Kate Jackson, maybe Cheryl Ladd a little later. How did you reinvigorate it? How did you bring new life into that property?
I knew from talking to Drew that she was magical as a performer. And then once we got Cameron excited, okay, then the stakes went to a whole
Yeah, but it
nother
had to
place.
start with the script, didn't it?
No. And I say that with the greatest respect to John August, who's my dear friend who I love, who did great work. But it was a take. It was a tone. That was one of the first meta offerings of self-awareness.
It didn't take itself that seriously. Correct. But
Yeah.
you found something in there that people did not find cheesy. And in fairness, there have been other movies since then that have not worked that are remakes of TV series.
Fair play. But I think the North Star heavyweight champ of the world that did it better than anyone is, of course, Barbie, which last year similarly took a difficult idea.
Changed the DNA.
Yeah. And ultimately it took Greta. They got it right. They had to bring in Ryan with the Ken thing, but you got that. So everybody felt safe in saying, hey, I love this. And I was hell-bent at the time of, I don't want to just do Charlie's for what was clearly the core audience of young girls that want to play Charlie's Angels. But I wanted for a quad, enter Kevin. And I wanted to make sure that it was safe for boys that were more inclined to like Spider-Man to also like
Make
Charlie's
it
Angels.
action
and
enough.
make it actiony and fun, but sexy and aspirational and unapologetic. We worked in sort of a anti-gun sentiment. You know, you talk about Farrah and Jackie and Kate, they were gun heavy in that show. And we decidedly didn't have guns.
More hand to hand.
Yeah. And that was Drew's big thing, but we did it without wagging our finger at the audience. And I think these are the things I got from you about how to honor the audience and get what you want to get accomplished and through, but don't do it in a way where you're berating the audience or wagging your finger at them, because their neck will get stiff and they'll bristle at what you're schlepping.
You ended up casting another very big movie star in the role of Bosley, and it was not easy to get him, correct?
Oh, heavens no. He has like an 800 number. Literally. It was a concerted effort between Drew doing what she had to do, Amy Pascal, who had some modicum of relationship with Bill Murray, and then Mitch Glazer, who knew Bill, and it was a trifecta triangle offense. He wouldn't return anyone's call. He's fabulous in that regard. The guy dances to his own tune. I really, really like him and look up to the way he's managed his one and only career. And we didn't know. And then we finally got him to do it. And of course, he was magical, and the rest is history.
One time he was at a screening. I think it was Fantastic Mr. Fox, and we snuck him in the back. And at the end, you know, usually the talent, we sneak them out before the lights come up. But in this case, he stayed in his seat. No one saw him, but he was filling out a questionnaire with the rest of the audience. And my staff member ran over to me and said, Bill Murray's filling out a questionnaire. I said, well, grab it so we don't include it in the count. So afterwards, I started looking at it, and it's rated like poor, fair, good, fair. And in the open-ended comment section, it said, favorite parts. Whenever the Badger, who Bill Murray played, was on screen, that was my favorite part. Least favorite scenes. Mrs. Fox, anything she was in, too bad she can't act. It was Meryl Streep. It was the funniest questionnaire I think I'd ever read. I saved that questionnaire because it is so hysterical.
That should be on the wall over here somewhere.
I know. Give me a screening that you attended where you remember some audience member said something, some person in a focus group said something that really motivated a big change. Anything that comes to mind?
Well, I think I've had that experience every single time we've worked together.
Is it usually a particular person, or is it usually like the group of people saying something?
I approach your work in the following way. Beat one, I feel the room. I think it's unbelievably important that I'm sitting in the room and I feel the room. You always do such a good job bringing together an eclectic and appropriate audience, which you could do I hope you do an episode about just the magic of what goes into that recruit. It's a whole thing unto itself, but it's always appropriate. I find that I'm very, very pleased with, okay, these are people we should be talking to about this movie. I always say, if Tom Ford is doing a collection for fall of 2025, he shouldn't go ask people exiting Walmart what they think. That's not his customer.
That's right.
You got to know who to
Wasted
ask.
real estate.
Exactly. So you would always go, oh, this is what this movie is. So I feel the room, okay? And I know that if too many people are going to the restroom, too many people are shifting in their seats, too many people, it's not going well. You taught me this. And then I study, this is where that's happening. I'm losing them here at the
Well, it's
end
not
of the
going
first
well,
act.
perhaps in that area.
Exactly.
They're becoming not engaged.
Or
Why?
conversely, they're laser locked. Nobody's going pee. Okay, it's going well.
Right. By the way, in lesser hands, I'm sorry to say, a company that's just giving you the facts at the moment are going to say, yeah, cut the sleepwalking scene in Macbeth.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're saying. We're saying,
Correct.
why are they fidgeting in that sleepwalking scene, which is arguably one of the best written scenes in the history
Indeed.
of literature?
Yes.
So that's what I mean.
Yeah, but my beats to get to that seminal moment are feel the room, then I'll wiggle out into the hallway and go, how are we doing, as you start to get the early count, figure that out. Then we'll go in and we'll do the focus group. Then we'll have the chat afterward. And I've had moments throughout each of those that have gone off with an incredible light bulb. I mean, I remember on Charlie's that there was something about that where we couldn't take it too blue, because at the time, the girls were very aggressive and they wanted to play like the boys. So there were jokes in there that were edgy and could even get to being decidedly blue. And people wanted to retain that idealized vision of these three ladies that know how to do it, but certainly have this patina of elegance. There was an elegance component, even with the degree to which they were willing to be self-deprecating and do everything to sort of lift the veil. I found that fascinating. And I remember there was this one woman at a screening that maybe we did at, would it have been Thousand Oaks?
Sure.
Back in those,
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
That it's Thousand Oaks? Because again, I couldn't get on a plane, because at that time, I think there was also when we would occasionally go to like Peoria, Arizona.
Correct.
But I remember one in Thousand Oaks, and this young woman, a Rubenesque, cherubic young woman, didn't like a joke that Cameron's character had made. And it was a joke that almost felt at the expense of what it means to be attractive as a woman. And I remember a light bulb going off, and just that saved the movie in so many ways.
Almost like body shaming or something.
Yeah. And it was long before any of that stuff. And it's just sort of, that's what you mean as far as if you're wise enough to pay attention and you go, you know what, guys, we don't really need that thing. I talked to Kevin about it. We can simply make this adjustment. It doesn't compromise the film.
Does not.
We're not talking about an integrity issue, but then we can lose that moment of checkout where you can further solidify the audience and keep building on all that goodwill and engagement you have been building upon without taking a giant step backwards and having to re-rack and reconfirm the engagement of the audience.
Last week I did a screening where the word "goddammit" was in it, but it's a PG-13 movie, and it stood out like a sore thumb.
There you go.
If you look at go over the flyover states, the red states in particular, you'll often find that word is more inflammatory than the F-bomb.
Oh, no doubt.
And so by having that in there, it pulled people out of the movie for that instant, and it's not worth it. But people don't understand, well, it's just goddammit. No, it's just goddammit in New York and LA, perhaps. But
in Nebraska, it's different. It's very
it could
sacred.
be quite different.
Yeah.
So I often say, be very careful of those little things. There was another screening I did where the one violent piece was the bullet going through the pilot's skull, and a splash of blood goes on the plane windshield. And I said, take out the blood. There's no reason to have it. Just have him be shot. It created that gratuitous quality that you didn't need in that PG-13 movie.
Correct.
It didn't enhance it. Some filmmakers might think, oh, it's going to edge it up or something. No, you're more conscious of it in some way.
But you must understand that the degree to which you've influenced me is so much more than that moment we share together at the screening. I take what I've learned from you to production, prep, shoot, everything on the next movie. And I'll shoot it too far to the left and I'll shoot it too far to the right. I'll go up, I'll go down, knowing that I want to give myself the latitude that Kevin would advocate. Should that, oh, that's too far with the bullet and the thing on the screen. We need, oh, but I've got that. I know
or
what to do, Kevin.
especially the ending.
You bet your boots.
Because I've seen you do that beautifully.
That's the degree of your influence.
Well, that's really kind of you to say.
That's true.
I appreciate it. But also, it shows that you have a respect for the people you're making this for. I mean, that really is what it comes down to, and that's what gives me the great satisfaction of hearing
Well, don't you
comment.
like helping people to improve their films?
100%. I have a true respect for you and for all filmmakers and editors and producers, and I have a real reverence for people in the filmmaking world because there is so much sacrifice.
Yeah. So when the rubber hits the road, it's not fun getting a bad score. And I've given you a movie or two that didn't get such a hot score.
Which one didn't get a hot score?
Well, what didn't get such a hot score?
We Are Marshall got a huge score.
We Are Marshall. I completely changed the manner in which the plane crashed because of you. The inciting incident of the whole film is a tragic film. Football team's flying home from a game. The plane crashes. They lose the whole football team. The town builds himself back up from the ashes. The beginning of The McConaissance, one of the first movies where McConaughey was really trying to become a more serious actor. He did a great job in that film. And you and I are working on that movie, and I overdid it. The plane crash was too violent. It was taking people out of it. And the way I ultimately expressed that was probably 5 or 6 frames. And to talk about, there's 24 frames in a second movie. So it's very, very brief. This 5 or 6, just the beginnings of it. And I got out. And you gave me that tip, and it revolutionized the movie, and the movie scored far better because of it.
Well, I think it was also a very painful movie to experience, but so uplifting at the same time.
Yeah,
how a community
sure.
comes together, man, because it wasn't really about that. It was about what happened after that.
Yeah, but
right?
also learning that lesson had to be incorporated into the cut pattern for me.
Who would you say is your, or are your primary influences? I wanted to ask you that, and I also want to ask you who is a mentor to you. But it could be one and the same, but let's take the first question first, which is, who influenced you as a filmmaker?
Well, I was lucky. You and I are similar in this way. We were lucky to be there for home video. Because when I was real young, I had to go to the art theater where they'd program sort of 2 days at a time. And you'd see the old Mario Bava movie, or you'd see Battleship Potemkin, and you do the thing. But it was hard because you were subject to the programming. But then with the advent of home video, you could rent the totality of Alfred Hitchcock and sit and watch 39 Steps and learn and absorb and learn and absorb. And I would have to say Alfred Hitchcock, as uninspired as that answer is.
It's not uninspired at all.
But, you know, just from a place of discipline and command and respect for the craft.
And building suspense.
Indeed.
I mean, truly building suspense with the most subtle camera movements.
Indeed. And then speaking of camera, I mean, you look at Rope, which they had to hide some cuts because the film would run out, but meant to be a single shot. And I would just marvel at that whole thing. And to this day, I still try to build in one big oneer in every movie I do.
What's a oneer?
Where you don't cut, or you cloak the cuts that you must have. And
what does that mean?
Well, that means nowadays it's quite easy. You can have a well-timed extra cross, and that wipe will give you an opportunity to get it in there with, you know, an edit, and then continue on to a second take, even though it feels like one continuous take. So I like to do that. And obviously, you know, Boogie Nights opens with a great oneer that's amazing. And I do that because Rope affected me so much to that. A contemporary influence, once I sort of got going, was certainly Quentin. Because Quentin, I was making music videos at A Band Apart, which was Quentin's production company. And he was part of that. Who the fuck is this guy McG? What kind of guy calls himself McG? He ain't doing it. And Amy called Quentin, and Quentin goes, I think this guy can do it. So he backed me up.
This is when she was
trying to not hire me on Charlie's.
Right.
And Quentin goes, no, he's making videos for us. He's a responsible guy. He can do it. He's got a point of view. Whatever he said was enough magic dust for her to begrudgingly hire me.
Well, I just saw the Guy Ritchie movie, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. That's a tongue twister. It is so good.
I know.
It is so entertaining, and it's very reminiscent of Quentin and that sort of influence of killing Nazis. In this, it was so fun.
Yeah, it's
and
fun.
I urge everyone to see that picture. What are you working on right now?
Well, but what I love about Guy Ritchie and what I love about Quentin, my favorite sort of filmmaking is the synthesis of highbrow and lowbrow. And that's always, always been my goal. And it's funny, we're talking a lot about Charlie's Angels today. I think that was successfully done in Charlie's, where it was pop and you could take it on this superficial level, but it was vibrating on this other frequency with references and Bill Murray-isms and thing that the more sophisticated viewer might raise an eyebrow and go, is that really this song or that song, or is that they using this? And just sort of vibrating on two frequencies. And obviously Guy Ritchie does that at a very high level, and Quentin does it better than anybody in the world. And that's always been my goal.
Well, success.
And right now, I'm working on a movie with Chris Pratt. It's called Way of the Warrior Kid. It's a book series done by this famous Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink. Basically, a Navy SEAL is on a mission, gets hurt, has to go home and heal up with his sister, who's got a kid who's underachieving, a 12, 13-year-old kid. And the SEAL isn't looking to help this kid out. He's trying to heal up so he can get back in and complete his mission. But along the way, very Karate Kid-esque.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm so in.
He's going to help this kid, and this kid's more importantly going to help him.
Wow.
Because it's a big thing that you want to remember, not dwell. And that's very difficult.
That's a great script. And that idea has been done, but this sounds like a great take on
I
it.
love archetypal ideas. Boy meets girl, boy meets boy has been done. Doesn't mean I don't love it. You know what I mean? It's just everything's about, I'm very into Jungian archetypes and Joseph Campbell, hero's journey business and what have you.
Did you ever read He? Robert Johnson?
Yeah. He is obviously a touchstone of that whole
I know.
world.
Oh, but God, you and I are so aligned in our sort of emotional journey.
Correct.
It's really crazy.
But there's always a way to do it with, I don't know. It's like music. There's only 12 notes. Doesn't mean that you and I have heard every song. It's what you do with them. It's the manner of which you put it together. You think.
I was going to say, actually, there's only 7, but it's really with the flats and sharps.
Yeah.
Yes.
Please tell me I got that right.
Yes. So, mentor, who was a mentor to you growing up? Was there a particular someone that really took you under their wing?
Well, I had a psychology teacher, which is why I wanted to become a psychiatrist, which was primarily just so I could heal myself, which is why there are a lot of great therapists out there, but heads up, there are some therapists that got into it for the wrong reasons as well. And you want to be very careful because you're talking about your own emotional well-being. And
you're so fragile.
Yeah. But I had a psychology teacher, Mr. Marino, that I stayed in touch with after I'd gone through his class in high school. And I was obviously going through some pretty big problems and challenges then of my own. And that was sort of led me to do a deep dive. And it's not that normal for a 15-year-old kid to be reading Freud in the standard edition. I was so hell-bent on trying to cure my own ills. It took me all the way through almost going to med school till I finally reconciled my loves are music and film. So I had that guy as a mentor, my older sister, my older brother, both rock and rollers. My sister was blasting disco. My brother's blasting rock and roll. My dad's taken us to go see The Sound of Music. Those are my favorite moments. You put that bouillabaisse together, and I'm basically a gay man that sleeps with women.
Yeah, I love it.
You know what movie I want to make? I want to make Cabaret.
Oh.
And I need to go see the Eddie Rain because I'm
going in 2 weeks.
I wanted to go last night, but I had to come home. I had to work. And I hear it's fantastic. They do it in the round.
Can I tell you, as a performer, that was the role I was most associated with.
MC?
Growing up, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was my role.
And obviously Joel winning the Academy Award.
Oh, man.
And then, the Alan Cumming version and the Sam Mendes expression is just so incredible. And
I'm sure Eddie is just brilliant, right?
Yeah, I'm sure of it. And it's the talk of the town. Everybody's talking about it. And my other dream project, of course, is Spring Awakening. And I almost got that done, and I just wasn't able to get it.
You also have another movie coming out called Uglies.
Yeah, Uglies with
Joey
King.
Yeah.
It's great.
Netflix, right?
Yeah, it's a youth YA sort of young adult dystopic thing in the vein of Hunger Games and Maze Runner and what have you. But it's interesting. It's really basically a story about a society where you're able to have a procedure at 16 to design what you look like.
Whoa.
And it's obviously a descriptor of what kids are going through today with Facetune, and you can't just post a shot. You got to filter it and get rid of your blemishes and clean up the cellulite. And really the message is beauty is interior. And a little more effort should go into your interior beauty game than your exterior beauty game.
One last question. Is there a leitmotif that runs through every movie, every show, everything that you've done as an artist, in everything that you've been involved with?
Yeah, I live by the motto, if you can't rock and roll, don't fucking come. And I just think that...
What does that mean, come to play?
Yeah, just come to the party. Come in. And I'm very, very up with people. You know me, and you know that's a big part of that. But at the same time, I don't believe in infantilizing adults. I believe in adult conversation. I believe in having a mutual respect for people and honoring them. And I believe in doing it with a light touch. So I think life is difficult and life can be filled with pain and suffering. So I kind of have this Roberto Benigni-esque, even in the face of the darkest moment, come out of it with the song. And I think it's how Robert Downey has frankly navigated a life where he had to take the crunchy and the smooth. And I've always been attracted to people like that. And I've always tried to have that be a through line in my work.
It is a through line in your work, number one. Number two, you have extraordinary EQ. You are blessed with it. It is definitely a superpower of yours. And I am so glad that you opened up to me today and shared your stories, and people are going to really respond to this. You're a very special man in my life, and I so respect you and your talent.
I'm so thankful for our friendship. You and I have been buddies a long time, and it means the world to me. I think you just realize it as you move on down the road. Friendships are everything, and the people in your life, and it's just so important to take care and nurture those friendships and the people that you've walked the path with. There's nothing like it.
I completely agree with that. Thank you. And thanks for joining me, McG. I really, really appreciate it. To our listeners, I hope you enjoyed our interview. Keep your eyes out this year on Netflix for the film adaptation of Scott Westerfeld's Uglies, directed by the one and only McG. For more filmmaking and audience testing stories, I invite you to check out my book, Audienceology, at Amazon or through my website at kevingetz360.com. Next time on Don't Kill the Messenger, I'll welcome actress, human rights activist, painter, and writer, the beautiful, the iconic Sharon Stone. Until then, I'm Kevin Getz, and to you, our listeners, I appreciate you being part of the movie-making process. Your opinions matter.